Hello guys, today I would like to discuss of flight mechanics in Sonaria and why it is now garbage, as well as air combat, and the most noscalled flying creature in my opinion throughout the history of Sonaria. So let's get started. The three issues I want to address in this video are flight as an outdated game mechanic that requires major revisions, backwards flying, and tier 5 flyers. The flight is outdated and needs to be reworked. Basic thinks, well, let's start with the most obvious. You can't disable flight and fall to the ground from a great height without getting damaged. 1. You've probably noticed how many players fly far into the sky during combat and then fall, using the fall time to heal debuffs, stamina, or HP. I don't think that should work. Add the mechanics of taking damage when falling from a great height, because of which you will lose some of your health, get a fracture when falling, and broken legs that will not allow you to quickly rise into the air again. More height and weight, more consequences. It also makes sense to use Devious Elder on flyers, have less weight and less prone to falling injuries. 2. Remove the ability to turn off flight until you have fully landed on the ground, so that players cannot lie down while falling from a height, or turn off flight to quickly land and start healing faster, and then quickly stand up and take off again. 3. Fast takeoff with a certain sequence of actions. You can take off from the ground immediately, getting maximum acceleration, but this should not work this way either and is probably a bug from the developers because it is sometimes even faster than the maximum acceleration from diving. But it can be made a separate ability for variety and add some pilots, for example Ghibli because of its turbines and similarity to an airplane. 4. Acceleration during a dive. In Sonaria, the speed of a dive depends on the speed of flight, but no more than that, although it should also depend on the weight of the creature. No, small creatures will remain as fast during a dive, but large creatures will be able to fly normally. Instead example of a pair, we will be able to see this. Isn't it better for the game and the variety of creatures used? 5. Make the Wing Shredder a cumulative effect, like bleed or injury, because due to the lack of accumulation, creatures that should resist flyers often miss them, and the flight is disabled when the effect is accumulated. At least 5 stacks for large flyers, because a flyer like Rayquaza and similar ones should not fall due to a bite from a creature with 1 tier, and increase the amount of Wing Shredder per hit for creatures that need it, at the discretion of the developers. Backwards flying. Oh, how much I hate it when people abuse it. Flying creatures shouldn't be able to do that, even if it's based on pure logic and physics. Flying backwards, especially faster than normal, and even up, is impossible. This discourages people from using flyers due to unfair competition in flight, as people without a stable 100 plus FPs have no chance against people using backwards flying. Because in addition to speed, it also allows you to abuse hitbox by both dealing damage and preventing yourself from being damaged. Additionally, many players who use backwards flying immediately flee when they lose a fight, even if they were the ones who attacked first, and leave the game to avoid being killed or penalized for growth. This should be fixed and preferably as soon as possible. Yes, I also use backwards flying, but I don't abuse it like some players do, and I hardly use it against players who honestly fight me 1v1 without using it basic respect for opponents. And finally, 5 tier flyers. No, we have moved on to the so-called useless part of the flyers, namely the super flyers such as Parahexilian, Zachiodrak, Athulith, Enthermin, and Rayquaza. If Zachiodrak and Enthermin are not already bad to play due to the amount of their abilities and survivability, then Parahexilian and Rayquaza are probably the worst flyers in the game at the moment, despite their recent buffs. They are too weak on the ground and have too little stamina and speed to be able to fight on equal terms in the air, and you might say, but Zeta has flight enhancing plushes and devious elders, and you're right, but with most of these, you'll only be able to match the speed of regular 5 tier flyers, but you'll still be slower and start losing to them due to a lack of weight or damage, so I don't consider this option. The creature should be capable of adequate flight without any additional modifications to its weight or damage. Parahexilian in real combat can die literally about 4 ground tier, even having weighting and self-destruction and wearing pluses. At the same time, it has a slower speed on the ground than they do and is almost incapable of normal fly. Rayquaza is the only decent flyer in the 5th tier in terms of damage and HP in combat, in my opinion, but it's so slow that it's almost impossible to use flight properly, and on the ground, it still performs at the average level of the 5th tier, but it can at least kill most of the 4th tier in a real battle. They desperately need the rework of the dive I mentioned earlier, and while they may still take a long time to take off, they will be able to fly at a normal speed once they reach the higher altitudes, instead of being a complete waste like they are now. I also think that the accumulation of the wing shredder should be added, as I mentioned earlier, at least from 5 stacks for large flyers, because a flyer like Rayquaza and similar ones should not fall due to a bite from a 1-tier creature. I would also like to say that with the introduction of all the changes I have listed, flyers will no longer be able to abuse their hitboxes in the same way, so some of them should be properly strengthened. And super flyers should be strengthened to match the low 5 ground tier. This is because these creatures will have the option to fly, they will be improved compared to their current state. However, they will still be clumsy in the sky. So who really is the most non-skill dependent and unbalanced flying creature? Did you think it was Novus Varden? And so, you're wrong. It's Goldcron. Perhaps many people have a question, why him? After all, Novus is an all-terrain vehicle and cannot be shot down. I will tell you that his stats and hitboxes make him almost unkillable. Despite its large wings and neck, the hitbox for attacking it is only in its body and is a small rectangle. Knowing the basic hitboxes of other creatures' attacks makes you virtually immune to their damage, which, combined with his other characteristics, makes him a killing machine. He has a base damage of 250, but if we take some things, we can greatly increase it, 15% Power Elder, 15% full DMG trait, and we get 330 damage. Take Void and Cat Plush and get another 5% damage, and use Aggro to get another 25%, and that for 133 damage. The same goes for weight. If you fully grow the 5th stage and get the weight trait, you will get 3,861 weight. We will also have 4,900 horsepower due to the additional life from Veneration. At the same time, his bite hitbox is huge and he can restore stamina with his breath and fly even when he doesn't have any. As a result, we get a creature that is almost invulnerable to diseases, FLIs faster than half of the 4th tier, deals 433 damage, weighs almost 4k, and has incredible hitboxes that allow it to escape from all battles with almost no damage. And someone thinks that Novus is worse and more dangerous than this? Are you serious? Gold can survive with 100 bleeding and fly from the ground without stamina with 50 poison. At the same time, he deals 200 damage to super behemoths, which is quite significant due to his attack speed and bleeding. Only by reworking his flight or fixing his hitboxes can he be made balanced. And it really needs to weaken its stats and hitboxes, even with its old nerfs. Well, that's all for Zeta. Thank you all for watching, and please like it. Subscribe and see you later.